So just a couple of quick things. One, we had the satsang last night, and I thought it might be nice just to some of the takeaways. And every time Swamiji just hits a home run. We were talking about it a bit last night after it was over, and he said several things, but a few of the things that really I think we should really think about is one is that you are not good, you are not bad, you are a human being. And I think that is something really, really important for all of us to think about and consider, because if I think I'm good, then Kaylee's bad. Or if I think Kaylee's good, then I'm going to make myself bad. So think about that all the time. You are, what he said was, you're an unfinished human being. So we have a ways to go, but we need to quit berating ourselves. We need to quit talking negatively to ourselves and about ourselves. We have to stop. If I'm not good, I'm not bad, then guess what? No one else is good or bad. We're just at different points in the journey. That's all. That's the only thing that's different, is someone may be a little closer to the goal and someone may be a little bit behind. At some point, say that we're one of the ones that happen to be closer, at some point in some lifetime, we were one of those ones that was really behind. So who are we to judge anything? That's the beautiful thing about, for me, with reincarnation, is that we have the opportunity to experience everything. Some of us will be faster learners, some of us will be slower learners. That's it. But we will have the opportunity in a lifetime in the past or a lifetime in the future to have experienced it or to experience it. So I will have been raped, I will have raped. I will have been murdered, I will have murdered. These are all, I will have been a child abuser, I will have been abused as a child. These are all things so there's nothing in this world that is a mistake. And there's also no reason. So now we've got someone who maybe raped someone, maybe is in prison for whatever reason. Where do we have the right to get on any kind of high horse and judge someone for where they are on their journey? If you start really believing that you're not good or bad, then that applies to every other being outside of you. So the next time we go to cast some sort of judgment or to annihilate someone with our words, or even ourselves, stop. Stop and reflect on that. Then he goes on to, and we've heard the Buddha and Ananda story where the lady wants to hand Buddha some excrement, and so Buddha takes Ananda back and he says to him, basically, don't take anything that you don't need. Don't take anything that you don't want. Now, this is the caveat that Kaylee was saying last night, that it dawned on her in a very different way, and I think it's something important for all of us to think about. So you should only take what you need for your spiritual evolution. So if someone comes and praises you and sings your glories, why would you take that? You're feeding the ego. The same thing, if someone comes and belittles you, why would you take that? But we are constantly looking for praise because we are coming from this place of lack, because we don't know who we are and we identify with being good or bad. If you can quit identifying with being good or bad, you'll quit looking outside of yourself for someone to give you some sort of accolade. For someone to pat you on the back and say, great job. Wow, that was an amazing class you taught. That was this. Oh, Kirtan was so great. Oh, wow, I love the way you play this. I love the way you do that. The only person that you should be working on becoming better for is yourself. And the other thing to consider is that nothing belongs to you. So someone says, oh, wow, that was a great job. Wow, you did a great job teaching class. Everything is God's. So the moment we're like, thank you. Wow. I'm such a great person. I'm such a this. I'm such a that. Healing from God. Because everything belongs to God. Any ability that you may have in this lifetime belongs to God. It is a gift that God has given you to use. But we start identifying with those gifts and we think that they're ours. You're not guaranteed to have any of those gifts next time. You're not even guaranteed to be human next time. Why get so bloated about anything? Nothing is yours, but we want it. We attach to that. We attach to that identity, whatever it may be. He talked about what is your spiritual. And I think this is something that we are constantly making schedules. We have a schedule right back there, the February schedule, coming up schedule. We have plans at TYS. We're constantly making plans. We're constantly adding to things. Our schedule. We have a calendar, right? We keep track of what we need to do. I need to be here at 3 p.m. I need to go here. I need to do this. We plan for a holiday. But what is your spiritual plan? Do you have a spiritual plan? Do you say, my plan is that I'm going to rid myself of one of these feelings of hate or anger or jealousy or whatever it is. I'm planned to rid myself from that in the next year. I plan to make strides towards that ultimate goal of seeing myself in all beings. Because when I can recognize the divinity within me, guess what? It just naturally goes out to recognize everyone else. So what is your spiritual plan? How do you plan? We call it the peace pension plan. What are you putting away daily in your peace pension plan? Examine yourself every night before you fall asleep. What have you done today to put anything into your peace pension plan? Or did you deplete it during the day? We must be vigilant. We have to be vigilant. And it's not a matter of, like I said, it's not a matter of berating ourselves because no one's good, no one's bad. We're just humans that haven't completely realized who we are yet. That's it. There is equality and grace with God. And there's equality and grace in love. This is so, Riley and I were talking earlier in the week about, people thinking they're the chosen religion or the chosen people. God has no favorites. We have favorites. We want to think that we're good so that we are God's favorite. God has absolutely no favorites. We put God in that small box. Oh, the white Christians are God's favorites. How arrogant to think something like that. But more importantly, if God has favorites, why are we doing what we do? If it's just randomly, God's like, oh man, I really like the Jews right now. Let me see what I can do to really get, so they know I have their back. It's ridiculous. God loves the sinner as much as he loves the saint. The sinner has a past and the saint has a past and the sinner has a future. It's the only difference. But God does not. He does not have favorites. She does not have favorites. These are things that we put in our minds. And then we put God in that same box. So we need to really start thinking about things and examining our thoughts. Quick thing, I put this on here so I wouldn't forget. We are doing a Kirtan Friday, 6 to 8 here, maybe longer. One of the things we will be doing, we will be repeating the Mahamrityunjaya because it is the darkest night.
Friday. It's coming. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is whatever the date that is.
What's the plan? messaged you about this just last night.
I was getting confirmation
Okay.
from Riley to see what if he was completely on board.
Okay.
And he is. So we are doing a kirtan here, 6 to 8, 6 to 9, however long it is. We will be repeating the Mahamrityunjaya. We will be singing songs for Divine Mother. We will be singing songs for Shiva. Well, whatever. We're gonna sing. We're gonna sing to God because this is also Mahashivaratri. So there's going to be some real energy out there that we can tap into. Okay.
Chant till we pass out.
I think you would beat everybody. Okay.
Turn the crank the heat up, do a static dance and chant till last man standing blows the candle out.
We'll set his time from 6 to 8 or so.
See how we're feeling at 8.
I have a bedtime.
Yes, I need to be up for 5 o'clock practice. So as we've experienced this morning, we are going to start initiating more and more silence into TYS. And it's not, because silence is a way to get to know ourselves better. It's a way to look at ourselves without those distractions. It's a way to be in the space here without feeling like you have to have a conversation with someone. So it's rather freeing. And we spend a lot of time on small talk, and it takes a lot of energy. Alexa and I were talking yesterday a bit, and she was talking about how she's becoming more comfortable with her silence. And she doesn't feel like she has to fill spaces in with people. She doesn't have to add something when there's this silence. She's becoming more comfortable with that silence. Maybe someone else isn't, but if they can feel her comfort level increasing, that'll make them more comfortable. So one of the things, and we're going to go back and revisit the schedule, but what we're planning on doing, when we can, we are so we're going to do 1 day of silence a month. And the way it's going to work, so we're going to, as best we can, unless there's a kirtan or something, we're going to link it with the satsang. So we will song on Saturday. If you can commit, then you start silence from the satsang all the way through Sunday, the next day. And what we will do, so the ashram will be open from 9 to 1, I think is what it said. Is that what it said? 9 to 1. So we'll have the satsang, or we'll have you can come here and you can do practice, but it's done in silence. And then after the 5 o'clock, we will meet back here for anyone who wants, that we will have a silent vegan potluck. And then after the potluck, we will come downstairs and we will break the silence with a group kirtan. So this is also getting us prepared for the 7 days of silence that we'll be doing in 2024. Because it can be overwhelming. But we take these baby steps to ensure. So basically the silent retreat or the silent weekend will start on the satsang weekends. So from like 6 until 5. So almost 24 hours of silence. And we will be taking a sankalpa. So we have some Ganga water upstairs. So if you can't commit to it, that's fine. But if you're going to commit to it, we have Ganga water so this is when when Babaji made him go to and bring some Ganga water back, when he made him take that sankalpa that he was not going to sing or do anything musically until 1985. And so he got the Ganga water, and we have Ganga water upstairs too. So we'll take a little, squirt it on, and just put it on your heart that you are committed to this time to no texting, no social media, whatever it is, your distractions.
When did you say it would start?
Saturday evening when we do the satsang.
After the satsang.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'd be able to talk and
During the satsang.
discuss. But
Yeah.
Discuss
Mm-hmm. Yes.
like
Mm-hmm.
we're watching, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Then
it'll-
when that's overly,
And then it's,
okay.
then it zip up.
Boom. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, so what we're saying is that the ashram will be open, but the mouths will be closed. Yes. So, yeah, so, just think about that. If there's some months that you're like, I can't do it because I've got such and such happening, fine. But on the months that you can, commit to it. Make a sankalpa. It's important. We need to strengthen our willpower. We need to strengthen our inner resolve. It's so important. Okay, so now we're getting ready to move into the Ramayana, unless there are any questions about any of that. Okay, so last we left, we're allowed to discuss now. Last we left, Sati had lied to Shiva. And she comes back and, from saying she did what she did to test Ram or whatever. And, I just believed you. And Shiva knows that she's lied. And so Shiva takes his own sankalpa and he goes into samadhi. And now this leaves Sati really in a state of just angst. So she begins to wander through the Himalayas and she begins to, she spends, it's years that she's doing this. She's just wandering around lost aimlessly because she's just like, oh man. So if we think about that before we move into the next part, so Shiva, as we know, is the individual soul. So Shiva, when the soul takes its sankalpa, what that means is that the soul, and one thing really important, Kaylee had some questions this week about the Ramayana. I want you to think of this as inside of you. So Sati is your intellect. Shiva is your individual soul. These are all things inside of you. Don't think of it, you can read it as a story, fine, but when we really start to study it, this is our pathway to liberation. This is why Valmiki, this is why Tullasidasa wrote this. It has everything in it that we need to reach the goal. But don't look at it as Sati is this female who, she messed up again, just like all females do. Sati is the intellect. It is your intellect. And Shiva is your individual soul. So now Shiva, the soul, has taken this sankalpa that says the intellect can't come to me until the intellect is completely transformed, until there is a complete transformation. So at this point, the soul is saying, nope, you have to come to me completely transformed before you merge with me. So Sati is that intellect that is, like we talked about last week, she's full of doubt. She's full of confusion. And she creates these lies. She creates these, which leads to more doubt. But her wandering through the Himalayas represents us, our intellect, wandering outside of ourselves. Always looking outside of ourselves for something, for that next experience, for that next gathering, for that next holiday, for that, whatever it is. So Sati is representing us looking outside of ourselves for all of that. So she's wandering the Himalayas, right? We wander our own little world, looking outside of ourselves for that which is within us. And the soul says, until you really want me, until you really want this, do what you need to. And when you really want to, then you will pursue a complete transformation. And then after how many lifetimes it takes, it has been said that we've had millions of lifetimes. One sage, and I don't remember which one it was, but he said that if you take all of the bones from all of our lifetimes and stack them on top of each other, they would be higher than the Himalayas. That's a lot of lifetimes. That's a lot of wondering. That's a lot of putting our hopes outside of ourselves. So, but at some point we're like, oh, wow, I don't want that. All this outside stuff, the happiness is illusory. We have this moment where we think, oh, wow, I'm so great. But then that moment's over, and also that happiness is over. So then we think, oh, well, if I can get this, if I can get the better job, if I can get a better partner, if I can go on a better vacation, if I can take a better journey, whatever it is, then I'm going to have that happiness. Then I'm going to have those answers. Nope. You get to that point and you're like, oh, wait, I'm still not happy. I got the partner that I wanted. I live in the house that I wanted. I have this, I have that. My kids by society look really great, but I'm still not happy. So at some point we start thinking, wow, what is this about? How does this even fit into anything that I really want, which is peace and contentment and bliss? Then we start asking the question, who am I? And when we start to really ask the question, who am I? So I can list a million things. I'm a white female. I was born in Ohio. I'm the youngest of 4 kids. I teach yoga. I'm this. I'm that. I'm a mother to 3 boys. All these things I can put in a box, but none of that is who I am. Like we talked about before, any of those things can be jerked away from us, but we're still here. We can lose a child. We can lose a spouse. We can lose our job. We can lose, it doesn't matter, but we're still here. So when you start really asking yourself, who am I? There's a confrontation that has begun. And that confrontation is with the ego. Because the ego thinks, I am this, I am that, you are this, you are all these things. And anytime that I'm this and you're that, there's a separation. There's a line of demarcation between us. Swamiji said last night, right? You've got this, but then when you bring this, there's no space. And when we have that, then there's nothing different. The soul is the soul. The soul energy is energy. This is the other thing we were talking about last night at the end. So if we could see ourselves, our energy levels, there would be no reason for bias. There would be no reason for racism. There would be no reason for any kind of prejudice at all. Because it would just be this energy ball. So if you see this energy and you see that, oh, that energy is depleted, I have more energy, let me help that energy out. But what happens is we see someone that we don't like and we think that, oh, they're depleted or they're having a hard time or whatever. And we're like, oh, well, karma's got you. Because we think of them as different than ourselves. Or we cut someone else's head off to make ourselves taller. Because we have this instead of this. And that's the problem. We look around and there's the 2. There's not 1. This is another reason. We're 1. So how does God have a favorite with 1? We are created in the image of God. The soul's the soul. We are so identified with this physical body. That's not what's created in the image of God. This is just a costume. That's all it is a costume. So when you have gone to that point of really asking yourself, who am I? A war is starting to wage within yourself. And that war is between the intellect and the soul, or the ego and the soul. So now we move forward to the next part of the story, and this is where, so Shiva's been in samadhi. He's been in and he rouses, and Sati says, because there's a huge yagya that is happening, and her father is the one who's performing the yagya. And he's invited everyone, but he did not invite Shiva. And she wants to go. She really wants to go. And so Shiva says, why do you want to go? What would be the purpose of you going? This is the soul starting to, right? The mind lies to us, but the soul starts asking those questions. Why? If you've really started on the journey, if you're really starting this questioning, the soul starts to respond. So why do you want to do that? You weren't invited. And Sati says, she goes through this whole thing because the soul wants to see if you're real. Those tests that we have, right? Are you really on this path? Are you really on this journey? Prove it. Talk is cheap. Right? You can say, I love you, I love you, I love you, and then go out and do something heinous to that person or behind their back. So Shiva asked her, why do you want to do it? So she proves herself that she really wants to do it. So he says, okay, I'm going to send you, but I'm sending you with 2 of my ganas, 2 of my helpers. And so she goes there, and so they're at this. She walks into the kingdom, and she's treated very cold. They really just are standoffish to her. They don't have anything to do with her. And so she goes into the ceremonial hall, right, where everything is happening. And she sees, and she's looking around, and she sees where everybody, has been invited. And Shiva wasn't, and she becomes enraged. She becomes just so... And then at that point, because she's so heated, so much with fire, she completely engulfs herself with flames. And she burns, she puts herself up into flames. Now at this point, Shiva's 2 helpers, they're like, whoa. And they suddenly go at it. And they're in that ceremonial hall, and they are ripping everyone in there apart. Taking heads off, stabbing them, doing whatever it is. Blood is flying everywhere. The spiritual journey is not pretty. We've all had those ugly moments, right? So everything is just flying all over the place. Innards are coming out, everything. Yep, they're gutting them. Kind of like those swords that they have the jags on the end, so when they're gutting them, like it's it's ripping them apart. So anyway, so now, so then they slice off Daksha's head, who was her father. And all of this stuff, so what this is, so the 2 ganas that came with Sati are, so we have it written up here, Virabhadra and, I put them on the wrong side, and Bhadrakali. So before she left, Shiva took out mats of his hair, and he put them down, and that's where Virabhadra and Bhadrakali came from. Virabhadrasana, warrior pose. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this is where, but Virabhadra represents that consciousness within us, that masculine energy, so that we know what demons we need to slay. Bhadrakali, she's in there, she's just taking them out. Because everyone in the ceremonial hall represents our desires, represents our actions, represents all those things that we do with where we are attached to the fruits of our labor. So some demons we have to start with fat. We have to work with a little differently than other demons. That's where Virabhadra comes in. Then Bhadrakali, she's in there. She's that action. So you need that awareness of what you have to do. You have to have that awareness of what demons you need to slay. This is your plan. This is your spiritual plan. You have to have that awareness of the demons that you need to slay. So that's Virabhadra. And then you add Bhadrakali, who is that Shakti behind it, that is going to give you that power to slay those demons. Otherwise, it's just lip service. Otherwise, we're just talking. Oh, I'm an alcoholic. Well, what are you going to do about it? Yes, admit it, own it, but you have to have the Shakti to do something about it. This is part of your sankalpa. I can tell you all kinds of things about myself, but if I'm not doing anything actively to change them, what am I wanting? If I'm wanting people to say, oh, wow, Rajni, that's so great that you can admit all that. That's fabulous. Then I'm wanting him to say, oh, you're a good person, right? I'm wanting that identification. I'm wanting that ego stroking. We have stroked the ego enough. It is time to get busy. It is time to bring in our discrimination and our dispassion. It is time to wage war on the ego. It is time to start asking, who am I? Why am I here? What am I doing here? Where did I come from? Where am I going? How am I going to get there? If you are hoping to have a better life next time, and by better life, I'm not talking about money, I'm not talking about partners, and I'm not talking about jobs, and I'm not talking about talents. I'm talking about if you are wanting a life that is more consumed with God, then get busy now. Otherwise, you're doing nothing, but you're just dog paddling. You're just treading water. We are not guaranteed to be given a human birth next time. Not at all. Why should God welcome us back when we've done nothing to better ourselves or better all beings, to better the world? So start asking yourself, who am I? And get into the nitty gritty. If you have a list of things of your temp jobs, that's fine. But start asking yourself, why am I so identified with this temp job? And what happens to me if this temp job is removed? You know, I was the youngest of 4. 1 year ago yesterday, I became the youngest of 3. I'm still here. My sister-in-law lost her husband that had been her partner since they were 18 years old. They were 2 weeks apart from birth age, and they'd been together since they were 18. My mom lost a son. They're still here. The temp job was removed. So you have to start examining yourself. You have to start looking within. You have to wage that war. If you are really wanting to do something in this lifetime, it's time to get busy. It's time to take that sankalpa. Well, I think that's it for today. That's about it for today.
Call that a sermon.
I forget which ones we're doing.
What we all do for the Super Bowl.
We'll be here.
I don't know.
Practice.
Playing, picking squares, betting squares.
I have no clue what you're talking about.
Next year we'll have to get a Super Bowl squares going on. Watch the game on a big projector.
I think you're talking a different
Maybe we
language
could
than
do
this.
bingo, raise money for TYS.
Yes.
People over here get some vegan cheese puffs, some cauliflower, broccoli, or buffalo wings.
Oh, yes. No, sorry. This is for you to read this now. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
You should have waved that to me back there.
Well, I was
So-
like, maybe it's just for me.
No, bring that up there. Sorry. You were sitting there and I gave it to you and then, yeah. Boy, you and Ray are keeping me on today.
You want me to start now?
Where did they just, oh, I know.
Why do the men with small
two of them.
bladders? The 2 of them all the time.
Make sure you were going to read it to the mic. I didn't do that last time.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I couldn't hear it. Is that?
Council.
Council.
That's why I don't read these.
What I read.
We're doing 6 and I don't know the order, but 6 and 24. But Riley will tell us what order. Listen, now you get a chance to. Written nay.
She's just gonna be Kaylee and Phil reading.
Okay, here we go. Kaylee. Alessa, please read for us.
All right. During the period of seeking, the student may become too intellectual, ignoring aja,
Yes.
baba, spontaneous intuition. Conversely, he may become too emotional, ignoring reason. An emotional trip is as dangerous as an intellectual trip. Each feeds the ego. A person becomes a slave to his ego when he thinks of selfish gains. A selfish person dwells in a state of doubt since his conscience constantly reminds him of his wrong attitude. On the one hand, he is pulled by his selfish desires, and on the other, he is alarmed by his inner voice. He is torn apart by these two forces. Do not ever condemn yourself in any way. Learn to appreciate and admire yourself, but see that you do not feed your ego. It is the enemy on the path, though it can be polished with some effort. Acknowledge your weak points. Let the power of discrimination console your ego, and make a strong resolution to overcome your weaknesses. While working on the removal of weaknesses, you have to be very vigilant. Ego does not want its weaknesses exposed. The more you hide your weaknesses, the more they grow. Remind yourself that you are on the path of inner purification and self-discovery. It requires great courage. Stand firm during this internal battle and support your Atman, even at the cost of dismounting the ego in all its retinue. A human being is miserable if he fails to unfold and use his inner potentials. In order to unfold his inner potentials, he must purify the ego or surrender to it, to the higher reality. After renouncing slavery to the ego, he can emerge from the confines of body, senses, and mind. By practicing diligently, one may attain concentration of mind, one may speak the truth, and one may serve others, but one cannot realize the truth unless one surrenders one's ego to the higher self. Only after rising above egocentric awareness can one find the universe within. Only then can one learn to love all and exclude none. One who does not love one's fellow beings cannot love God at all. Humanity is suffering from ego-born differences and equality. People discriminate against their own brothers and sisters simply on the biases of race, religion, caste,
Yes.
or complexion. In order to be free from these problems, a potential settlement alone is not enough. When all human beings understand that their suffering has been brought on by ego, only then will they resolve all their differences. They will throw aside all the confinements of race, what is that word? Sorry.
Caste.
Caste, religion, and sectarian feelings. Instead of identifying themselves with a particular group of community, they will identify themselves with all beings. They will love all as their own family members. The ego is very useful in helping you to function in the world, but it's not very useful as far as deeper happiness is concerned. The ego is that which separates you from the reality, from the truth, from the ultimate source. The most important step towards self-transformation is to shed one's ego, to surrender it to the higher reality, and thereby attain the light of discrimination and pure faith. Once ego surrenders itself to the highest truth, You have attained victory, and spiritual illumination is yours. Soon after the victory over ego, all other virtues, such as humanity, love, selflessness, compassion, and kindness, spontaneously unfold. These virtues are prerequisites for self-transformation. When these virtues blossom, a human being becomes a saint. These saintly qualities send a silent invitation to the Lord of life. Swamiji, emotions, mind, and ego.
Isn't that amazing? You can. But remember, at some point we have to slay the daksha, right? The ego. And don't forget, daksha was the father of the intellect. So the ego is the father of the intellect. So we need to slay that ego.
Ginger.
Ginger?